I'm Joe DiDonato. I'm the founder of Tech Boot Camps. It's an 8-week boot camp that we run up in the Boston area, a little town called Woburn. And we're in our second boot camp now, and my head of admissions is here, Julie Warden. And we're having a good time with it. Hi, come on in. Because we're going to talk about something that's probably near and dear to some of your hearts who are trying to size a project that you're maybe quoting and things like that. Wanted to just see where everybody was coming from. If you wouldn't mind, just quick name. We'll go down that way and then come down. Name and what you're working on.
John Bussey, Bright Cloud Technologies. We run all sorts of different projects.
Okay.
Drupal's one portion of our business,
Okay.
but we do managed hosted services.
Okay.
So we've got stuff all over the place, ranging anywhere from
Well, the good news is that this project estimator thing came out of Oracle, where I used to run part of Oracle's consulting and then education. So.
Ben Bowen with Scottsdale Consulting. We're a small PHP shop, just focusing on search network.
Yep.
Jeremy Does with SharpDot. We're a small shop here in Atlanta. We do a lot of Drupal, and I'm there.
Good.
Kristen and I work for SharpDot also.
Okay. All right. How about this table? We'll start with you. Yeah. I saw loss of eye contact, so I went for you.
My name is Christina. I work for New Valley Media, and I am the director of business development. So I spend a lot of time doing sales,
Okay.
RFPs, all those things.
All right. Now you're going to find this handy. It actually helps with sales a lot. I just want to know what things to emphasize and not emphasize.
My name is Chris. I work for Commerce Guys out of Greenville, South Carolina. I'm a remote employee. I do project management.
I'm John Ferguson. I work for Habitat for Humanity International. I'm here to learn all the tricks that the consultants are going to use on us.
This guy.
I've worked on
That's
both
totally
sides.
not fair.
Kick him out. He's not allowed to be here.
Okay. How about?
We're from Tremont, technical project.
Okay.
With Red Synopsis, myself, my name is Greg Paulo. I'm with Red Synopsis, do development.
Okay.
I'm Justin Rhodes, DCATL client guy. I am just a client guy. I work for Aspiring Web at National North Carolina.
Okay. All right.
He wishes he.
We're just naming a quick thing about why you're here, so I know what to focus on as we go through.
Dan Ham, work for Classic Graphics in Charlotte, project manager and business analyst.
Okay.
I'm Avi Goel, work with Accelerant, one of the founders, and focus a lot on business development sales.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Alicia Hayes. I'm a program director at Phase 2.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Adamu Zamaniki. I am with IBM. I've been working there 8 years, and I've had a growing Drupal business. So I'm here to kind of get
At
better.
IBM, really?
Yeah, I heard you say Oracle, so I thought I'd do that.
Oh, sorry. It's a long time ago.
Lisa Shipley, University of Tennessee, project management.
Oh, perfect then. You can say yes when I say these are the best practices.
I'm Shine Throckmorton, or a company called Kinesis. I'm in new product development.
Okay. And name and what we're working on, so I know what to focus on here as we go through this.
Like my current project or something?
Yeah. What do you do? Are you a project manager, or
Yes.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, with Palantir.net, based in Chicago.
Okay. So mostly everybody's in project management. So this came up. So I'll give you some background what we're going to cover first. I'll tell you how the project came up, a little bit about the project team that's working on this, so you know the genesis of the project. I'm actually going to show you how the project estimator works, and you get to keep it. We haven't made it a Drupal module yet, because I'm still proving out some of the stuff. But anybody who wants to help us can do that. Then we're going to just talk about some of the best practices for project management, and as we go through. So a little bit about what we asked. We asked the folks that come to our boot camps. It's an 8-week long thing that we tell them they have to put a portfolio together, and that's just to show the employers what they're capable of doing. And one of the things I've asked them to give back is something to the Drupal community. So what does new novice folks, what can they give back? Well, it turns out that we had a couple of folks involved in project management. I used to run a sector of Oracle's consulting before I ran Oracle's education, and so we had to use a lot of these tips and techniques and things. And we had a guy who was a green belt in project management and PMP. So, you know, that became a natural. And then the senior instructor I had in the class said, you know, I have a real problem estimating jobs, and if you could just put us a little closer on this. So that started a conversation, and it was a great conversation. We took about 4 of the students in the class that had the background, and we put them over on the side and said, okay, we're gonna create this thing. So we got triggers on triggers, and so I may skip around here on purpose. So we thought there was a couple of problems that we all faced. You know, how big is this project? You know, usually you're throwing out a number and you see if it sticks, the flinch method of pricing. You know, if they didn't flinch, you go, and if you want us to, you know, come back and maintain it next month, there's another $80, no flinch yet, okay. And we have a year program, you know, and so that's the flinch method. We found by going through this stuff as an organization that it became more effective at closing the deal as well as winning the deal and turning all the other competitors off. So I'm going to try and give you the sense of that when we go through this. And so part of it is involving the client in your estimating work and closing the deal without leaving money on the table. And then how do you deal with scope creep? You know, almost every time you get started, they say, oh, and did we tell you about we wanted? And you go, okay, well, that wasn't really in it. So this is going to help you with scope creep. So I'll fast forward to it. This work comes from, the initial stuff came from John Walling out of Seattle. He's got, if you go to this link, he's got a checklist out there that he put together after doing 100 Drupal installations. And it was good, but it was missing the testing components. So I found this by J.D. Collier from Digit, and we put that checklist as part of this too. So it's a pretty comprehensive tool you're going to have when you can walk away with that you can use to do it. And these are the folks that were involved in this project in the first boot camp. I kind of told you about all of them at this point. Okay, so this whole thing boils down to getting to 2 numbers. When we were doing the cells at Oracle, we went through and said, okay, we sat down with your people. We've got these 500 tasks that we've put together, and you say to the client, okay, which ones do you want to do? And they say, okay, I'll do this one, and this one. You've already sized them somewhat. And at the end, we had it so it dropped down to 2 numbers, what they're going to do and what we're going to do. And they would look at the 2 numbers and make one of two noises. Either, I don't have money to do all that. Okay, well, you agreed to all the tasks, so which ones are you taking back? Or, I don't have enough people to do all that. Okay, what does that sound like? Bigger budgets available, right? So we don't have enough people to do that. Okay, which ones do you want us to take over? So the whole thing is to drive to those 2 numbers with some realism here, and you can see the 2 numbers I'm talking about. We'll show you how they got there on when we get into the budget or into the project management. And so the class keeps touching it and analyzing it. You'll see that if you put a start date and a due date in, and you tell it how many people, small, medium, large is all we did for now. 1 person, 3 people on it, 5 people on it. It'll calculate the number of hours that's available and tell you if it's red. In other words, you don't have enough people. Yellow, kind of close. Or green, you got enough people to handle it. How many weeks it's going to take to complete, and the number of resources. So it's a pretty good tool from that standpoint. And the way we approached it, I touched something. We have to go revert to the other mouse at this point. There we go. I moved it. Nice job. All right, how about up there? Okay. We basically broke a project into these phases, major phases, and there's a bit. I know you can't see them, but you'll have it on the sheet. The business case, and we'll spend some time on best practices there. Client requirements provided and deliverable documents, project management plans and resources for development, requirements analysis and documentation for proposal, and RFP, RFI, integration and testing, production, client trained, and user documentation produced, maintenance of the whole process. And then what we do is take each one of those major tasks and put them down here and put the subtasks. So this is basically called a task, subtask kind of format. Why did I use this at Oracle? Because I could talk to non-techies. Everybody had those whiz-bang project management things with charts and everything, but we could talk to people with this. And when something was wrong, or when we could go right to the point, we could show them who was responsible for the project, and I'll show you how that works when we pull up the whole sheet next. And then what we did was, there was a couple of rules. No project should be longer than a week in our minds. Why? If you had a 6-month project and they're saying, yeah, we're good, we're 80%, 90%, invariably in the last 2 weeks you'll find something that blew it up. And what have you lost? You've lost 6 weeks. So we always chunked it down to be a week, at the max 2 weeks, no longer than that. And the next thing we always added was an issue document. And there's a link in here so you can link to an issue document. What's an issue document? Can't get to test time. That was a pretty prevalent problem. Not enough test time, so we would link to that. We'd had an escalation procedure started with everybody. If it's not resolved in the first day, we escalate it to the second level. If it's not resolved there, we're at a VP level, and that's why we had this kind of a subtask format, because we had to go to a meeting and talk about it. So I'm going to try and click this open, and I'll show you how it works. I filled in some things here. I filled in the length of this particular project. It was, I think I selected 1. I may have to work it from here. And you can see it showing us as yellow. The total hours requires 362, but not enough slop to really make it green. If I change this due date, it's linked to calendars, so it'll pull up all the holidays in that session. But let's say I made this 11:15. You can see it'll turn it to green. And so this will kind of give you a visual kind of a feel for it. What it's doing here is calculating the numbers of requirements from the company and from your consulting company. So it's adding up here. So what we're doing is, these are the project phases. And remember I said you don't use percent complete down here, but you can show percent complete up there. We found that when you're 15% into a project, if you're on time at 15% mark, you can predict that the project will finish on time. It's that finite, so it really works well. So as you put in numbers here, it changes numbers up here. So if I change one of these to like 6 hours, you can see it's going to change the 16 up here as soon as I hit enter into something else, 20. And now it just keeps track of where we are percentage-wise and completion. So each of the major tasks are here. These are all Drupal specific. There are some things that are not self-evident here, like a SWOT analysis. Who knows what a SWOT analysis is? Go ahead, give it up.
Strength, weaknesses, opportunities and threats.
Opportunities and threats, right. It's just a quadrant that you create. And it's usually done during the business planning phase to see what opportunities you're missing. Things that might come up are, you don't have a geographical area you're focused in on. And so some of that is blown in from the business plan. And then all this has translations down into the website and the design of the website on it. So what we're still trying to do is link to all those different areas and so that it's more self apparent. But as you put things into this and send it back to us, I'll incorporate it. I mean, it's meant for the community to use on this whole thing. So I know you're expecting something really, really hard to concentrate on, but this is really it. So it's that simple. This is all the integration and testing. And these hours I just made up. Don't think these are right hours. And you'll be able to download this and the blanks. So again, let's go back and talk about how it's used. One of the things we found out that if you sit with a user when we were selling manufacturing systems, if you started an implementation plan with the users, and there were things that had nothing to do with sales, like start training or clean up the shop floor, things like that. 15 or 20% of the way into those things where you got checks, no one ever changed vendors. They went with the vendor that had taken them that far down the path. So that was the importance of doing it in a sales cycle. And again, what we're driving to in this whole thing is these two numbers at the top, and this is how you discover the client budget. So these are very small numbers, but if you had a big project and they look at those two numbers that are bolded up here, the 45 and the 28.5, they're going to have one or two reactions. If you haven't used up all their budget, they're going to come back to you and say, I don't have people that can do that. I can't free them up. So you say, okay, which task then that we've already assigned to somebody, and those tasks are assigned down here. What we try to do is make this vanilla to handle. So when we put a responsibility thing in, like B and C, it's because we didn't want to put Jane Smith in something else that you had to change over. So you just fill in who A and B is and C. Okay? So that's how that works. Let me close that down. We'll talk about some best practices and then just turn it open for a discussion. Okay. The next problem everybody seems to have when they talk about doing a deal for a client is what does the content strategy have to look like? And that's in the early stages of this work plan. And so how do you kind of tackle that on? Anybody a content strategist in here? Or done some work? I saw maybe.
Some, not mine.
Some, not.
Hopefully someone else gets to do that.
Well, it'll probably be you after. So I'm gonna take you through how we set this up. So, one of the things about a content strategy is know the customer type, and once you start defining all of that, you have I created a spectrum of possibilities here from a client who was Marvel, Comics to Wilson Sonsini, one of the prestigious law firms in Silicon Valley. And obviously their look and feel of their websites are going to be very different, and it just has to be. And so this is usually what we used to do for a plan. We started with, okay, the look and feel, who's your target audience, and all these other questions, and that kind of drove the images and the styles and everything else in there. And so here's a set of questions that we put in there for you to use. Who's the key target audience for the site? Who's the secondary audiences? What's the primary message? What are the secondary messages? You want to be very clean with this, not commingle a lot of messages up front because it'll apply to no one. Then you want to pick up some metrics that and how you'll measure the site's approach. It might be more in-store traffic. So the whole purpose of the project is to drive more traffic into a retail store, let's say. Or it might be incremental sales. Maybe you're working with Starbucks and they want to drive the incremental sale per client from $4.65 to $4.95. Well, how are we going to do that? Okay, the site might do something like, okay, have you tried our new sausage-filled donut with your coffee, whatever that might be. And so that's the way to go. Now, how do you get the content strategy and the tone you use with each of the clients? This is probably the easiest thing to do and the thing that no one ever does. I'm going to use a nonprofit for this example, and if you're trying to develop a content strategy, you're looking for the two drivers of behavior. What do you think they are? It's on the chart for a nonprofit.
Income and emotional involvement?
Yes, so how rich are you? And did somebody in your family suffer from, maybe it's a cancer thing, think cancer in your head, and how involved. Now, depending on where you are in those quadrants, it depends what messages you should hear from a well-designed communication strategy, content strategy on a website. If your wife died or your husband died and you're wealthy, high income, high involvement, they're going to be talking to you about planned giving and legacy stuff, right? If you're high income but you don't have any connection to cancer, no one's in your family ever suffered from it, they're probably going to talk to you about tax benefits. See the difference? If you're high emotional involvement but not a lot of income, they're going to talk to you about making a monthly contribution as your way of, and volunteering possibly. And if no involvement, no income at all, you're probably just looking for a volunteer kind of an operation. So once you have those quadrants laid out, you know, I think at that point you can develop a content strategy for this thing. I should have probably, I didn't know how much time we'd have to get through the whole thing, but should probably try some. You want to try one? Who's got a customer they'd like to throw up? And we'll see if we can find the drivers. Maybe it's going to be too hard to do.
How about the ice bucket challenge?
Ice bucket challenge?
What was the motivation factor for people doing that?
I don't know what the ice bucket challenge is.
Yeah, no. Yeah, ALS, but you know, I don't know. Maybe this isn't the intended thing, but like people may or may not have had emotional involvement and income. How did they pull that off in the sense that they put something out there and got such a large population to do something?
You're referred by someone you respect.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with it, probably.
Yeah, again, it may not apply here.
So are you asking for the...
Think of a client. I gave you a nonprofit world example. I was thinking maybe we take somebody else.
I have a marketing research firm at the client.
A marketing research firm. So are you talking about their clients or the marketing research firm itself?
The marketing research firm.
Okay. So what drives things for them?
I mean, they're particularly interested in data analysis. So they want a Drupal website that allows them to collect data easily that they can then either analyze themselves or farm out for analysis. And then their own clients pay them for the analysis.
Yeah. So I think ultimately they're going to have a client focus at the end result. So you're probably looking at their clients. So their clients are probably going to be doing something like driving traffic along one side or driving revenue and growth along the other side. And then you have the intersection of those points. And so that trickles back to the market research firm that says, okay, the kind of things you want to present to these clients are, if you invest this kind of dollars with us, we'll find your top 3 sales objections to your product. And if you overcome those, statistically, that'll increase your sales volume by 42%. Those are actual numbers, actually. If you can overcome the top 3 sales objections. But you get the idea. You're looking for the drivers of the business behind it. And then when you're ready, this is called The Conversation, from Brian Solis. And Brian's taken all of the social sites on the internet and lumped them in. And I think this is an interesting discussion. Okay, now you know who your clients are and what their interests are. How are you going to find them? So I put it there only so that you could find it and look at it for your own interest. And I think some of the best practices we've already covered, but we'll sum it up now and turn it over to you if you want to talk about some other things. Again, involve the client during the project estimating stage in that process, because once they've agreed to the length of the task and the task, if you just present the task list to them at the end, they go, we weren't involved in that. You know, we don't know anything about it. But if you've involved them through the process, maybe a weekly review of it, you know, they'll know that they've participated. No such thing as a partial completion in a task. Once you do that, you remember the 6-month example. Once you do a partial completion, you allow that to happen, then you're going to get a lot of, you're going to find a lot of times you're going to be surprised by someone not finishing their piece of the project. So always, you're looking for a yes or no in those columns in there. Try to keep all the tasks to a week, 2 weeks max. Just keep breaking them down until you can find that 1-2 week. That gives you a good management point, and once a week you're project managing. And then use the issued documents to resolve conflicts. In this are all the links to the sites. If you go to Tech Bootcamp's content project estimator, you'll have these slides, project estimator slides. And I'll leave that up for a second because I think the next one is questions. So we sped through that. What's bothering you now? Anything? Any questions? Learn anything insightful? We're thinking about it. We're not, you know, we thought that might be the right way to go. What's everybody's feeling about that? Right now it was a bear to get it working in Excel. But not everybody uses Excel. So you can download I put a blank one up there on the site, so you can download the estimator itself in there. It's blank. And then refer to the presentation on how to fill it out. What do you think about the difference of having it as a module?
Well, I mean, if you have it as a module and you're interacting with the client, I guess you could, with the website itself, we can keep track of it, I imagine. And
Probably more helpful for collaboration.
yeah, actually, yeah.
Stuff in a document, especially with people getting more and more geographically dispersed.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of set it up so that we could do that. You know, we tried to link from pretty much a table format here. You know, when we had an issue document filed, you know, you could link to that document someplace else. That could just be another content page, right? So I think that's where we should head, unless somebody sees an objection to that. Yeah.
My question is, what Drupal website would you want to install this on? I guess if you had Open Atrium running, you would, and your clients interacted with your Open Atrium site, you could have it somehow hooked into your Open Atrium site. But it creates a slight obstacle to actually using it, because you got to find the right Drupal site that the client has access to, you have access to, but it's restricted in some ways.
Yeah, that was the counter argument, by the way, to it.
You have Google Docs, that's another option.
Google Docs. So
It almost all my spreadsheets into it.
what do you do with your spreadsheets?
Google Docs.
Google Docs, yeah. I kind of like Google Docs. You know, other folks are talking about you know, Dropbox and some of the other things, but you know, you got to. I hate it when you have to check things in and check things out, because people forget to put them back and close all that stuff. So I guess this is still part of our debate, you know, as we take this project from the class and move it from boot camp to boot camp to the next one. What does the end product look like? You know, is it still an Excel worksheet? Is it or is it a Google Docs, or is it a module? A module that you have, like a reporting module, is what they're thinking about. That's how they were thinking about it. So
what about just the form or a content type?
A form. I mean, it can stand alone. Tell us. I mean, this is the first time we've presented it to anybody, so tell us where you want us to go with it, and we'll do it. You know, we're pretty flexible on the whole thing.
It's very simple if you use it as a form, but if you actually implement each like phase as entities, And then later you can link a lot of properties to that, and you can notify certain roles, like, hey, this is ready for testing. You can do a lot of things if you implement it as its own entity.
As its own entity. Yeah, the other issue that came up is how, these aren't all the right steps. This is a generic form, and as you get into a project, you got to add steps, delete some of these things. How static do you want it someplace? So these are
Well, I was about to say, that's always the challenge with any project or tools, is that sometimes it has to be generic enough so that we can use it, but it becomes too specific. Because sometimes, like, I know in my own job, that again, like, they have tools, but like, you don't even have time. The time it would take to figure out how to use the tool is time you would need toward the project. So I think maybe being as generic and simple is the way to go, because usually when you have complex projects, I find people will go to like a Microsoft project or that kind of stuff. But most people I know sometimes will just use Post-its. To me, the best. And I discovered this thing called Google Keep, and it's the greatest. Like, it's just Post-it notes that sync on all my devices, and it's done. I check it off, archive. Sometimes the simpler tools, I think, there's more of an opportunity there than in the complex type.
I think that's what the team was searching for. Where do we not have to teach anybody about a tool, and let's put it on that platform, and let it go with that. And then the other side of it is, can we use it to, when you start interfacing with the stakeholders on a project, then you want to show them some graphs and charts and things like that. So, once you start converting it over into the Drupal land, you got even more kind of things you got to worry about.
Yeah, it sounds like it moves into like project management from project estimation.
Like an agile module.
Yeah, because estimation, I would imagine, flexibility that you get out of Excel and Google Docs is probably more than sufficient. That's what we do today, is we create a separate spreadsheet on Google Docs, and we've got our sort of way of looking at things, and it works very well, very quick, easy to collaborate. But it's by no means project management tool. So.
You guys agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't work very well for us because we're ISO 27001 certified, so Google Docs is not something that we're going to ever use for that kind of a, if you've got ISO certification to deal with, you're probably not going to use some kind of cloud service.
Yeah,
that's just for estimation. Like for actual project management, it would be different.
You could take the data from this and throw it in. It's almost like a checklist at this point. What are the things you should be thinking about, and it'll give you some other things to.
You can put this in a form and use field collections to add more tasks as you go. It wouldn't be that.
You can, but if you want like a lot of features, you can't really assign properties to it.
Yeah, originally it was started out as nothing more than a checklist, and then we started filling in the blanks, and it looked like it would yield to a task, subtask kind of a format. But I think, as a way of approaching a project, if you just looked at all the steps that are in there, I think John Wallings did a great job of finding a lot of stuff. We added several steps to it. We added the testing part to it. And all that good stuff. But I think it's a pretty comprehensive list. I know you can't see it from there. I don't know how to make it any bigger on this thing without ruining it. But, and there's a lot of things that yet need to be defined. I think it said, like, determine the analyze the web site. What does that mean? Well, we know what that means. It means I got to take this website from here to here. What do? Do we freeze the code? Do we freeze certain moves? What's frozen? What can change on the old one? What comes forward? It's creating that kind of a plan, a migration plan across. And so all that stuff's got to be added in the background. But I think if you're all project managers, you're going to know all these kinds of things anyways, and you're going to grab those and know that these are tasks that you want to do yourself. But at the very least, it's a great checklist.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the title of the talk, which was how to discover the client's budget.
Yeah.
I was reading something more sneaky into that title, where you'd look at the annual revenue and who's the head of the department and who are you talking to. Is there anything like that you'd like to discuss, or that feeds into the tool maybe? So how to figure out how much money they have.
And to add on to what he's saying, how would you introduce this into a pre-sales environment? How would you even broach this conversation with customers? To this level of detail, this is a lot of detail for your average business owner, your average business client that you'd be dealing with.
This level of detail, you've probably got a pretty extensive RFP
Well,
from them where they've already volunteered a lot of this information.
Chances are we wouldn't produce the detail in front of them. We would start with the top steps. I keep grabbing the wrong mouse.
Yeah, I mean, for you to go to this level of detail, even just internally, just throwing it together to see, you're responding to something.
You would be, do you get it, is it an RFP you're responding to? Are you?
No, I'm just asking, like in your case too, you sit down in front of a customer, you're trying to figure out what their budget is for a particular project.
Yeah.
You're asking them in general terms what their scope is. How do you get them to the part where they'll sit down with you and willing to go through this in the level of detail necessary to come back with a number?
Yeah.
And what's a general rule of thumb to work from?
What we always did to keep a project from just dragging on and on is we said, okay, when does the crossover have to occur? Okay, and then we started with that, and this is how we led them into the conversation. And they say, okay, the crossover's got to occur November 15th. It's absolutely, or December 31st, because it involves our 1099 processing. And we say, okay, how many people do you have available to the project? And they'll usually tell you that. So number one, you can usually double the number of people they have to the project, but it really depends on the industry. So I would not use that as a rule of thumb. But now you know two things: when it has to be done, and how many people they have. And you start asking, have you gone through setting up a work plan yet for the project? And they'll say, well, we got to start. And we say, if you're not in sales mode and you're in help mode, it works better. Well, how about we help you with that? We can take some of the benefit of some of the big projects we've worked on, or some of the small projects, whatever you're talking about, that we've worked on, and show you where we know we've got to put some time on this. And they'll generally welcome you into the process. Once you're welcomed into the process, you sit down with the project team and say, look, here's the main phases of a project from how we control. You may add something to these phases yourself, personalize it. And once you're there, you say, here's some of the things we're starting to look for, and you'll find the project team will defer to you. 99% of the time, they'll defer to you. They don't know what to do. Or you'll get some really alpha character, alpha male or alpha female character who wants to control the whole thing, but that tells you something else too. So that's the person you're playing to, and say, okay, let's see what kind of stuff you have. Let's just look at the two side by side, see if there's anything that we can add to that mix. But generally, if you can get them, so what was the steps? When do you need it done? First question. How many? I guess we could write those down.
But you've already defined the scope at that point.
That's right. So you already know what it is. But the trick is still can't ask them their budget. I mean, they're going to throw you out. You could say, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about you giving us half the project? You talking about, you just got to be very cautious there, because as soon as they hear the sales thing go off, you're out. Or everything you say is suspect. But project due date, we always ask that. If you don't have a due date, well, we don't know how long the thing. That's good news for you, because it'll just drag out forever and you'll be part of their project. So that's something. We also did this on the sales cycle, because if there was no due date, then there was no sales cycle. And the other thing we used to do on a sales cycle, each of these people can only spend so many hours a week at talking to vendors, and you can't get more than three people a week and you do your job. So what we used to do is to force one meeting a week on some topic, whether it was a presentation, and then we took our odds from 20 to 1, the original RFP distribution, down to 3 to 1, 33%. So it's that kind of a sense to it. Project due date. How many people on your side, on your team? And then I guess there's a third question, and you could say, what do you expect our involvement to be? That's very vague. What do you expect? What do you want our involvement to be? You'd be surprised what comes out. Well, and you don't come off as arrogant. What'll come out is we got a project manager, but the person doesn't work well with other people. We're thinking, how'd you pick them? And so they're saying, well, we kind of like you to work, in tandem with that person. So so now I know you got a project manager going in. They might just say, well, we just want you to be the ones that document this or test it, and you go, okay, thanks, and you leave if that's not what you want to do. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But those three questions, we'll scope it, and then the fourth question leads you into the project plan. Have you put together a work plan? Okay, those are the questions. Once they say yes or no, either way, you introduce yours. Say, well, maybe we can help. This is some of the things that we do to track our own project teams, make sure they're on task. That's what we use for Becca. Let me bring in some of our work and we'll show you. And once you start that, now your end answer is you're going to discover their budget at the end, because you're going to start assigning tasks out to yourself and to them, to yourself and them, and you're going to look at the two numbers. And it's only one or two reactions, or three. That's great, perfect, we're going. Or two, I don't have the people to put in, so you've already agreed on a task, so the easiest thing is to pull the task. Or, we don't have that kind of budget, okay, do you want to take some of the tasks back? And you get two responses there. Let me see if I can go get more budget. Or, yeah, I need to pull them back. We maxed out our spend for the year. And that's how we found it every time. Not hard.
Are you already past the contract stage at that point?
No. No, we could still be in the top 3 vendors. But once you get them to this point where they're working a project plan with you, remember what I said, you get only part way into it, nobody wants to start all over again with another vendor. So if you can find some early stage things to do that you're willing to give up for free, like some sort of a meeting on let's talk about a content plan or a content strategy, something that you always have available. The best consulting folks drop 3 things for free, and then they get the rest. So you kind of have to think in that terms. And then now if you're building the work plan, you know what the RFP is going to look like pretty much.
I can say, from our standpoint, we come up a lot of times to RFPs that are pretty vaguely defined, and we actually follow a similar process and kind of help them realize the scope in it.
Yeah.
Drop in a little bit of time, but it requires a lot of pre-sales sort of scoping as well. How real is this opportunity? We don't want to put an architect on something that is, it's just being shopped, the RFP really. So if you can qualify it, we'll put in the time, and if it's a real opportunity, we'll put in a little bit of technical time or whatever and offer something for free, and it typically works wonders.
Yeah, that's a good approach. And the other thing, your project managers, should do yourself or train your project managers to do, is always look if these things reached out to another system and touched it somehow. You know, you got a API with their financial system or something, because that's yet another opportunity for you, you know, to keep, and it just grows like it grows like that. We used to get 80% of our revenue from existing customers and 20% from new. Very hard to get a new customer. And then when I ran education, guess how many classes produce 80% of our revenues for Oracle Education out of 340? 5 classes. It's amazing. Amazing once you start looking at the numbers. But so, you know, that's the need for the project manager to constantly be looking for other things. And by the way, we did this for training. You know, we said, okay, here's the training types. You got a database administrator. You got a, you know, we had programmer analysts. We had analyst programmer. You know, depending on network architects all the way through. And across the top, we had all the courses they should take, and we checked them off. They added to the right and then added down, and that was our faint number. And our average sale went from $5,000 when we were selling a course at a time to $125,000. Because what happens? Oh my God, that's a huge number. Okay, well, what do you want to take out? They start stripping out courses. Now what's in their mind? They're starting to think, oh, I'm going to really screw this project up. If they didn't faint, then we had optional courses that they should take, and we trained our pre-sales people to go in and do that. But the mentality is, okay, I've cut half of it off. It's still a big number compared to having to go in and sell one course to a customer. So it's not just consulting; it can work in other venues. That's all I got, gang. I know we got to get going out of here. If you have another question, see the next presenter showing up. Any feedback, give it to me, jddonato at Tech Boot Camps. I'll give you a card if you want to come up, and if you want to help us with the project, we'll take it. If you say, look, at these 5 things need to be added, we'll add them. I mean, it's meant to be a community project that everybody can use to size a project and as well as manage a project that they're involved in. Okay? Sign our.